WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts. Along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episodes. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to Uncommon Place.
Howdy, everybody. My name is J.R. Sparrow, and we know a topic that is really close to my heart. And we did an arc last year, and I'm going to keep doing this arc until we can figure out some things that may work for us here over in the U.S., maybe learn a few things. And we have a U.S. great, and the reason I want to say great because he's cultivated his cinema love and his his love in general for the business, and he's taken it overseas and he's modeled it and made it amazing over there. This young man's name is Aaron Henry. Aaron, I'm going to give you the floor real quick. Can you please give us a bio and let us know what enticed you to want to talk about this topic?
Sure. So, JR, thanks for having me on. And to keep my bio short, I've been in Southeast Asia now for almost 10 years. I came here from Los Angeles. In Los Angeles for 20 years, I both worked for Warner Brothers and also ran my own marketing communications firm, consulted with most of the studios, sort of ran the gamut in terms of experience from helping launch and market some of the bigger digital publishing platforms like Rotten Tomatoes and Fandango and Flickster. And I also worked on the film end, both on the studio end in terms of promoting releases and also on the independent film end, everything from marketing to producing to theatrical releasing. In terms of movies and obviously my interest started when I was young. That led me to LA. Series of circumstances led me to Thailand. But in terms of movies, obviously this is not, I would say, I think most people will concede it's not a great time for the film industry, certainly not in terms of theatrical. It's facing some challenges. I know there are some big differences that we can talk about in terms of what the theatrical experience is like in Bangkok versus the US. Happy to describe that. I think there are some things that work well for our markets that could be learned from on the theatrical end in the US. I cited a number earlier to you where I had said our year over year box office gross in 2025 is projected to grow. But to be fair, I also realized going through the data that globally, the box office is growing, but the fact is we're all trying to dig ourselves out of a very deep hole that came from COVID. So COVID, for example, dropped the box office in Thailand dropped by 60 something percent. So a 5% or a 10% raise is still moving a little bit towards trying to dig ourselves out of the very deep hole that we got in. And I guess we'll see if that happens. So that's my intro and my just giving a little bit of background on my interest in theatrical.
Okay, now your view on one of the Sedessa cinema. Do you think it's more of a physical venue, or the shifting of a culture to like a communal type movie going? Because my examples like this, like me and you both said, with COVID happening. When COVID happened, I always owned a projector and would watch movies, but it came a point, and I want to say the first major company, and I don't like to name drop, but I'm going to just do this. Warner Brothers with HBO Max. They dropped a movie, and I believe it was either the King Kong or Mortal Kombat, one of the two. They dropped a movie directly on their streaming service, and it was odd because me and my wife now, she was my fiance then, we watched it and we were kind of amazed because we were all locked up, quarantining, and we did everything we would do to go to the movies. I mean, we went to the store, got the movie box candy while we
Hmm.
could go in, and we
Hmm.
got everything. And obviously, we didn't have the aesthetics of the THX sound and or Dolby sound or
Right.
whatever, but we were able for us to capture a great moment, and it started to become the normal for us. But for you, like, what do you? I mean, beyond just the COVID thing, what do you think it is about the physical venue? At least over
I
here.
think in response to your question, I think it's both I think it's both the format and the venue. I mean, or the theatrical going experience. And I went to a film the other day. I went to go see 28 Years Later with some friends.
Yeah.
They were actually also from California. One of them, a colleague of mine who I work with, who came here fairly recently. Another one, a good longtime friend from Palo Alto. And it struck me because I hadn't been into a theater in a while. And let me just back up for a minute to say, our theaters in Bangkok are spectacular. There's never been a venue. In fact, in all the 20 years of LA, there has never been a venue that rises even to the level of the experience of even a mid-level Bangkok theater. And
Whoa.
now the and I was sorry, we went to go see it at Siam Paragon. Absolutely beautiful theater. And now in LA, I mean, you can barely count on one hand the number of theaters left. The difference between the way theaters are situated in a big Asian city like Bangkok and US cities, I believe is really key. Now, one, like I said, the theater going experience is it's a lot more premium at every level. It's a lot less expensive. Tickets run from, I mean, you can get tickets on promo for as low as $5. You can
Whoa.
get them typically for $10, but at the high end, you can also easily pay $80 a seat here. But that's
Okay.
for the most premium experience. Um, our theaters tend to be at the top of luxury malls, so they don't occupy the sort of real estate that theaters do in the U.S. So they have arguably lower running cost. Um, our malls, particularly in Bangkok, we have excellent public transportation on trains, unlike any city in the U.S. They're all incredibly modern. Our trains are built by Porsche and they run on tracks built by Siemens. So they're beautiful. Uh, in general, people in public, and this includes people who go when you're going to the theaters, behavior is very different. It's very considerate. There's a lot of conscientiousness about space, other people's needs, and when you go into a theater, um, for example, this screening, we were all kind of amazed because this was just a typical sort of weekend matinee.
Okay.
Audience, maybe the theater was a third full. Everyone totally quiet and respectful all the way through the screening. You would have thought it was a cast and crew screen. Actually, maybe even more respectful than that. And at the end, every single person in that theater, every single one sat through to the very last end credit. Totally silent. Watched the whole thing. And everyone, I mean, even my friend who had recently come over here from LA was just kind of amazed. He's like, even in industry screenings, nobody bothers to watch to the end credits anymore. But that's what I'm saying about the experience that in a large part is dictated by the audience that you're watching it with, is really defined here by that. So less costly, more premium venues with more premium aspects to them, and then audiences who are really just very respectful to the experience. And so what I'd say is, and I'd sort of forgotten because I hadn't gone for a while, that the theater going experience here is really great, and you do feel like you get your money's worth. Um, Now, all that said, I mean, including here, obviously, theatrical dropped off a lot during the pandemic. People started turning towards sort of the home viewing situation. Of course, studios are changing their windows for release, which is also an issue because it's giving people a greater incentive to stay at home, and they collapse the window between theatrical release and the home entertainment window. But I'd also say on top of that, I do really believe one of the challenges that the industry is facing now is that younger and younger people are consuming shorter and shorter content in different formats. And to try to impress on someone the appeal or the reward in watching a long form, a long form narrative, I think is not necessarily in keeping with the way that younger people are consuming content anymore. I mean, you've got a lot more, television in terms of, or I should say television, streaming in terms of series, but also just in terms of YouTube videos, um, Snap videos. I mean, things that are like, that are very geared towards limited attention spans.
Yeah,
So
short attention span. I got you on that one.
and also not only that, but also let's say gaming. I mean, gaming's a lot more immersive. So again, you're facing multiple challenges, and whether or not that leads to the death of cinema, which I certainly hope it doesn't, these are all pressures on the business. So including here, where, like I said, despite cheap prices, despite premium experience, we're still facing some headwinds. At the same time, I would say that most movie goers, if they were to walk into one of our cinemas here in central Bangkok and experience it, would see that you would see the appeal. And if on the theatrical end, exhibitors in the U.S. would, and I realize there's some inhibitions on the business end. I mean, there's some issues that are that might not be readily surmountable on the U.S. theatrical end, but I think there's some things they could learn from Asia. So.
Okay. So let me ask you about the Asian experience. So, one thing that you were like you're talking about the luxury malls, and that's one thing in the United States. I can say that there is a disconnect now. Like me and you remember in the 80s and mid 90s, I'll say it was about 1998. So the mall was the place to go because usually there was a movie theater connected to adjacent. And I think the
Yep.
problem is like you over there where you're at, what sounds great is if you're in a luxury mall, because we have luxury malls around here. I'll give an example like Columbus, Ohio, for instance, has a nice luxury mall but has a movie theater attached to it, not maybe above it, but near it.
Yep.
So it entices people to go to the movies.
Yep.
But the thing here, a physical theater here just is just not appealing, like you said. And like you said, that movie window, from theatrical release to streaming now is only like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If your movie doesn't
Yes.
do
So
well,
short.
yeah,
Yep.
not to name drop too much, but me and my wife were talking about a movie called oh my gosh, we just watched it last night. Matter of fact, Megan 2.0. It's an
Yeah. Yeah.
NBC,
Sure.
it's an NBC
Yep.
Universal, and
Yep.
when the first movie came out, it had a lot of hype around it, and it was building back up to people going to theaters. But you see, this movie, it was only out 3 weeks and already
Right.
available. A lot of NBC Universal stuff is it just so a person like me, I'm like, for her and I to go to the movies, probably about $60 if we go into a medium tier theater.
Yep.
But when
Yep.
we bring
Yep.
us and nephews and nieces and everything, that's $120 before
Absolutely.
I even buy a thing of popcorn or anything like that. And then, the one thing that is enticing at your other theaters is, these the revival of a popcorn bucket. And by the time you buy the popcorn bucket, like I'll say like this on July 25th, the new Fantastic
Yep.
Four movie comes out.
Yep.
That Galactus thing is $89,
Oh, that's insane.
and
For a
yeah, but I mean,
Galactus popcorn buffet. Wow. I
right.
mean, look,
And
yeah,
there's
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead,
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
so what I'd say is, yes. I mean, look, the popcorn bucket thing I think is pretty amusing. What was the and I saw I see a shark one. I don't remember what even film it
Yeah,
is for. Anyway, a lot of my
it was
friends are.
for It was for Jaws. Its 50th
Yes. Yeah.
anniversary.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So my friends post these popcorn buckets, which I think are amusing and a fun gimmick. But I also think that one of the underlying things, and I'm surmising here because I haven't been back to the U.S. in a few years, but based on what the people around me who recent transplants or people I stay in regular contact with here there, malls here still are. I mean, they're a big draw for people. You can walk into a mall any given day in Bangkok, and it's going to be full of people. U.S. In a lot of areas, I know that's not so true, right? Like where I grew up
Right.
in Northwest Arkansas, I think the mall's pretty much dead. The mall where I used to go to the Magic Man as a kid, I think that's all gone. Um, but here, malls are, again, there are two keys to this. One, public transportation. Bangkok is crisscrossed by the entirety of the city, which is much, much larger than any city in the U.S., including New York, including L.A. It's crisscrossed by an excellent
Whoa.
SkyTrain and subway system. Two, when you go to a mall here, and of course, one of the underlying appeals is the air conditioning because it's a little warm here in Thailand. But two, again, the experience is a lot more premium. I mean, you go in, you've got everything from, you go to Icon Siam, for example, one of our newest malls along the river. Icon Siam has everything from on the lower level, independent vendors selling stuff in food stalls to Michelin starred restaurants at the top. And then above that, there is, again, a really premium theater. So you have a lot of restaurant options. You draw everyone across the entire spectrum. You can go and get it. Drop $400, which is not so much in the U.S., but here is a fair amount for a dinner at a nice French restaurant, or you can go, spend $3 on some som at a food stall downstairs. We also have a lot of Every mall has a lot of functional aspects, pharmacies, IT. Of course, it has all, retail, H&M, Zara, Polo, you name it. And then also, I mean, again, on the luxury end, Chanel, all within one mall. So we address all of
Whoa.
that. So the appeal is Icon Siam is like nothing you've ever seen. Many of the largest luxury malls in the world are actually here in Thailand. Um, so, and if you imagine like the most decadent mall in Dubai, it's like that. We're we're
Okay.
we're at a very high end of the spectrum. But it also, as I said, it has a very broad appeal. So you can come in and wander. You've got very affordable offerings. You've got very premium offerings. You've got everything that you need in terms of, from watches to car galleries to like I said, Chanel, um, uh, Gucci. But because the experience is so immersive, it's got such broad appeal. You still have people there. We have a lot of people, and our malls get packed. And then the theatrical experience at the top of it is still part of it, right? I mean, and it's affordable. So you can walk straight up the 7 or 8 floors of Icon Siam and go into, I think there's theaters called Iconic. You go and have a great theater experience. So I think that the underlying part of that, if you think of the theatrical experience in a silo, then you would miss what I think are a lot of the underlying elements that still make it, appealing and germane in a country like Thailand, or I should say a city like Bangkok.
Okay, now let me
And,
ask you this. Now, another thing that we have a problem with here, and like this, I remember this. God, this started back with Napster
Mhm.
and everything like that. We've always had piracy problems because I mean, let's just be honest. Back in the day, when you had a VHS tape, you could put a piece of tissue in it and block it up, and
Yeah,
people
yeah,
could
sure.
record things there. But the piracy that is available now because of the digital literacy that has been passed on from
Of
hacker,
course.
and that causes problems over here worse than anything else, because it was a time some guy had to go into a theater and record it. But now
Sure.
that reviewer or screener copy over here in America is posted on these quick torrents and places and moved along. Do you over there in Southeast Asia have any of these problems like that?
We have, of course, piracy. I think that I th- I mean, I don't want to get out over my skis here in terms of saying this, but I think the fear of it is oversold. Okay. We have, because
Okay.
the streamers here, and I don't have the numbers at hand in terms of penetration, in terms of the audit, in terms of the general population, but Netflix, of course, is everywhere. HBO Max to a lesser degree, Prime is everywhere. The the Even though we have piracy here, part of the piracy issue, I would hazard to say, and I can actually cite a specific conversation to support this, can go back and blame the rights holders to a certain degree. And this is why. I remember having a conversation with one of the most senior level Warner Brothers execs. This was before I moved here. And before I even had an idea that I would move here. And I asked him, I said, given the piracy that's in Asia, and this was based on a conversation I'd had with a friend, and I said, part of the piracy issue, according to him, is you just do not make your content available there. And you don't make it available at a price point that will meet that will satisfy local demand. So, and he said, well, of course, we don't make it available there because we are afraid of piracy. I'm like, well, this is a chicken and egg argument, right? Like, you say we don't
Right.
make things available there. And so people turn to piracy in order to access the content that they want to see. And you're saying you're not making it available because of piracy, which just creates the problem you're afraid of. Now, I will say I mean, things have changed a bit. That was probably 15 years ago that I had that conversation. But I will say, even today, when I go onto my Netflix here, because of course I have Netflix and Max and, sorry, HBO Max again, and
Yeah,
Prime.
with the names every week. Yep.
But the truth is that unless you're using a VPN to access a US account, they severely restrict the library of content that's available over here. So, in some sense, they are still self perpetuating the problem that they're afraid of. And the idea that people here, I mean, Thailand is a middle income country. Certainly, I mean, even the youngest professional here at the lowest end of the salary spectrum can easily afford Netflix every month and would prefer to do that versus logging onto a BitTorrent site and downloading a lousy ripoff of, like, from filmed in a theater, which is never here. Like, honestly, most of that content I think now comes from like markets, like the surrounding markets like India, right? But as
Okay.
I said, the entertainment industry itself in the US has perpetuated its own problem in Asia to a very large degree. They haven't made the content available for decades that might appeal to people, and they severely restrict their library. But I can tell you, Sinners, for example, um, which was, fairly recently in theaters, is now
Yes.
on Max. I think it's on Max. Only
Yes.
took a few
On Max
weeks,
and
like you said, very, very short the the majority of people who are consuming entertainment here are going to watch it on streaming before they'll go, rip a torrent. So, yeah, I think there is some naivete on the studio end. Um, I mean, I understand their fears, but their fears are not well grounded when, Southeast Asia is an emerged, not all of us around here have emerged as middle income countries, but, half of the region, so let's say. So,
okay.
um,
Now my other question to you on this one, like, because I don't know if y'all deal with this over there. Now over here,
mhm.
No, this is outside of theatrical. This is when it's actually coming
Yep.
onto a physical media.
Yep.
The industry is eradicating physical media.
Yeah.
Ever, for example, I know you remember Best Buy and places like
Yeah.
that.
Of course. Of
Store,
course.
store like Best Buy carries no physical media whatsoever.
We don't really. Everything here is everything here is digital and online. There's I mean and I realize that's sort of throwback to like if you wanted to go get a film in a digital format, what could you go buy it on there? DVD? What would
Yeah,
yeah, we don't have I would say in part because this is just a guess on my part. I mean, there's obviously the sort of if you have physical media, then you also have to have the player, right? So then you've got to have extra devices, and those devices, are not necessarily the most cost-effective way to consume something. So, and we're also, I mean, in some ways, Asia, let's say in particular China, has leapfrogged the U.S. Technologically, right? You don't see a lot of the things that we have here. Um, our cars, I mean, Chinese EVs, they're they're just so much more advanced. And the U.S. has been blocking these for obvious reasons because the minute you let in these Chinese EVs and forget about scaremongering about privacy, I mean that's absurd. It's just because they're better, right? They're better. They're a generation ahead of what we're producing there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know like Cadillac is making some great EVs, things like that. But the wave of Chinese vehicles, you can't really fight this. Certainly not the rest of the world. And the U.S. is isolating itself by not allowing the best tech from China to come in, and that's cars, cell phones, laptops, right? And there's not a large awareness of this on the U.S. end because you don't have it there.
right. So you
So
don't.
you don't see it, right? You're not like, oh, wait a minute, this is a whole generation or two ahead of Apple. You don't see it because they don't sell it. The most modern,
Well,
the most up to date Huawei phones. Huawei got blocked years ago because of some absurd claim that it had a chip that would somehow send U.S. private information to the CCP. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is clearly just an excuse because they are not they will, but they have outcompeted us. If you look at a map recently of the biggest trade partners in the world, the U.S. has, in terms of countries globally, where the U.S. or China is the biggest trade partner, it's all China now. We basically have Canada. That's it. So yeah, that's it, man. I'm telling you. So it's a striking sea change in the way that the world operates, the devices that people are using that Americans are not
okay,
seeing.
and I can see that too. Now let me ask you this: is
Yeah.
like going into a different arc inside of this thing, streaming
Uh-huh.
services. Streaming services, when it first started out, obviously Netflix, it was the thing
Yep.
that eventually killed Blockbuster. We'll just go ahead and put that out
Yep.
there in the air because I always will.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I with the company I worked for, we actually tore down at least 100 blockbusters in the U.S. And
Yep.
knowing what Netflix did, they started very small, light distribution of other shows, and now production.
Yep.
How do you feel about the streaming services and their productions on movies now? Because I'll be honest with you, they're getting A list. Well, some of them are past A list, some of them are B now, but mostly they're getting A list actors to come out here, make movies, put them on their streaming service, and kind of like circumvent, the movie theater. Do you all have that problem over there in Bangkok?
I would say the dynamics are a little bit different. Okay, so the streaming services have all taken a stab with various degrees of success at building local industry, sort of the local industries here to produce content for the local audiences. Obviously, the most successful has been the Korean market, but the
Yes.
Koreans were producing content that had global appeal. They've been doing this for decades. And the same way that the K-pop industry took a lot of guidance from the US in terms of creating content that would have global appeal, so did the movie industry, which is why you have some great Korean series. I would say Korean content here in Thailand supersedes US content in terms of appeal, to be
Okay.
frank. I mean, someone like my wife would much rather be watching a show from Korea or even China than almost any series that is streaming from the US.
So there is a difference in quality and production.
Well, now Thailand, we don't have. So the issue with Thailand, there's a lot of reasons for this culturally and structurally. Thailand claims they would like to emerge, on the global entertainment scene by producing content that would have the same appeal as Korea. We're not really there yet. People are
Okay.
taking a swing at it, but we're not quite there. You wouldn't be able to name a single Thai celebrity for me. However, everyone here would be able to name, if I say, look, I work with Denzel Washington, I work with Harrison Ford, and then I'm like, one of my closest friends is yada yada, Korean, a Thai celebrity. Everyone's like, whoa, Peter? And they're like, who's Denzel? Who's Harrison? They don't care, right? We live in I call it our little hermit kingdom. We are a very isolationist type society, especially culturally, which has
Okay.
there are some very nice aspects to that. We're not involved in any global conflicts, for instance. Um, but in terms of, I recently went to a soft power event that was held here at our very, very amazing, lovely Queen Sirikit event convention center. And it was, in terms of staging, it was great. It was beautiful, and it involved fine art and food, and but again, the issue is, like, again, you can see the desire expressed for Thailand to have its soft power travel. But among the thousands of people who were in attendance that day, I was the only not Thai person. So I'm like, your soft power is not traveling very far.
Right.
I'm the only person here who's not Thai. And then I had another friend go another day. I was like, dude, were there any people there who are not Thai? And I don't say foreigners necessarily, because we might be of foreign origin, but for example, there's very little chance I will ever leave this country, as most of the people I know here would say. He's like, no, I'm the only one there. I'm the only one who's not Thai. He's like, it was very Thai facing. I'm like, but it's soft power. You were supposed to be. So again, there's these sort of structural issues, these conceptual issues that are inhibiting us for doing that. However, kind of coming back to your question about streaming, of course, Netflix has local productions in Thai, produced in Thailand, in Thai for Thai audiences.
Okay.
Yeah, you might, whether or not you could sign on to Netflix there and find any of them, I do not know. I have no idea if they're streaming in the U.S.
I'll have to do that and get back to you on that
Yeah,
one.
check it out though. Just look. I would say in the Korean end, it's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot more presence on the Korean end. Series like Sweet Home, um, or Squid Game.
Yeah.
By the way, just a quick aside, one of the final shots of Squid Game, um, where actually, I don't want to give this away, but anyway, there's a guy who's visiting a young girl, and it's filmed in Los Angeles. One of the final shots is of my last condominium that I lived in LA. I
Okay.
look at it, I was talking to my wife. I was like, wait a minute, that's my home. So anyway, but
Okay.
those are worth seeking out. Obviously, Squid Game is obviously the most popular and prominent of these, but Korea is producing a lot of really great content. So.
Okay. Now, just to finalize on the death of cinema,
Mhm.
give me your take on how we could fix things in America.
Better healthcare for universal healthcare.
Yeah, we do need universal health care, no doubt on that.
No, I'll tell you. I think it comes down to, okay. I think there are some bigger existential issues within America that if we fixed would help better sustain the industry. Good high quality public transportation being one of them, because this all kind of feeds into it proliferates communities, right? I mean, we're a
Right.
much more communal society. People are much more inclined to be together, go to the same space. It's much more rewarding to go to a mall here, of which I think that the theatrical experience is a big part, than to go to a mall in America. Um, I would say I think that if I have to think about the things like on a more micro level and theatrical that work here, I think that sort of the standalone theater concept, paying for your own real estate in the U.S., I think that's a big problem. I think it probably inflates prices to a certain degree. I mean, for example, the theaters that you go to, where are they attached to malls? Or are they out by their?
So, and that's the problem. Like you address something that was really heavy there. Like they're not attached to malls, and then a lot of times the movie theater is away from everything. Like if you want to eat something,
Yep,
you have to go somewhere else before. And we do have some bistros and different ones that are tied in. But when you start tying that in, like there's the ones that have bowling alleys in them and different things like that. When you start tying in all these extra things without like what you said, you like when you're talking, it's like a whole surplus of things to do from
yep,
lower class to upper class. Here,
yep,
you've got to be of a certain standard to go to these places, and if you're not looking the part, you're not going to get turned away, but you still, you'll get looks. So people will shy away from stuff like that. And over there, it seems like from what you've said, it's like a universal appeal. You know,
yes,
there may be a person that doesn't make that much money, but they can go see a movie and eat something at the same mall. At our malls here, you either have dining that's attached, like what's something? Let's go with something crazy. Cheesecake Factory. You have a Cheesecake
yeah,
Factory attached, but then you have the movie theater down the road. So that
yeah,
discrepancy of, like you said, of transportation too. With our public systems here, not everybody can go everywhere all the time, or
yeah.
safely. So I think, like, listening to what you said, and I've done a little research on the different things that go on there, and like what was it, the infrastructure I looked at? Is it the BTS or MRT? Which one was it?
We have two. So the BTS SkyTrain is a SkyTrain. It's elevated above the roads. The MRT subway is underground.
Right.
So
So
we have,
it was a BTS that I looked at, yeah.
yeah,
And I looked at how that flows, and I'm like, if we had that, that would work out. I was telling you, for instance, in like the little city of Charlotte, North Carolina, I was telling
yeah,
you, we talked about briefly before we got on the air. They have a some type of monorail type system now,
yeah,
and it's nice to get you to certain places, but it gets you nowhere that has entertainment or to a mall. You have to get off, and you're going to have to go 8 or 9 blocks to get to wherever you want to get to,
exactly.
and that is not convenient, like what you're saying. And the things that I did do some research about, where you are, like you said, that transportation ties everything together, and it makes sense for everything to go on. It doesn't matter who or what you are, you can get there, as long as you have an
Yeah,
income or some type of
yeah,
force of money, you can live and you can still be like the guy that makes $1 million or the guy that only makes
yep,
$10,000 well, we'll say $20,000 a year. So I can see a difference there. And then the other thing that takes away is like we were talking about a little bit, these gimmicks, the popcorn buckets, this and that. And another thing that we didn't get into deep detail, and I do want to ask you if you would come back on the show
mhm,
about this next one. The next time I have you on, I want to talk about the strike here, because
yeah, yeah,
that is something that fundamentally in that, and then AI writing, because when we go off the air, I want to talk to you about something real funny.
yeah, sure.
And we'll do a second interview on this if you don't, if you have
I
in the
would
near
I would be
future.
thrilled.
I'll
This has been
definitely
a great conversation. I'm happy to lend my
right.
perspective from the far side of the planet. So
Yeah, because you have a great perspective and like that, and I think the audience will dig that. One thing I need you to do, I need you to do a quick little shameless plug. So once people listen to this, they're going to want to greet you across the internet. Could you let them know where they can catch you across the internet and get involved with you?
Absolutely. So the easiest thing is to go. So my agency is Foundeast. The URL is www.foundeast, foundeast.com. There are plenty of email addresses on there. I promise you, you reach out, you'll get me or you'll get my team, and I answer everything. So I'm happy to take any sort of questions or communication and keep it rolling forward. So
Okay, so on that
and
note,
if
I am
if
JR, and he
the
is. Go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was going to say, if any of the exhibitors on that end, some of whom I know pretty well, would like to reach out, I am happy to give you my opinions on how you can, on how you can look at fundamental issues in American society and use these to get our theaters filled again. So,
Okay, so on that note, I am JR, and he is Aaron Henry, and we are signing off.
all right.